Hey, what's up, guys?
Welcome back.
Welcome to Is It Crazy or Is It God?
Yes, welcome to another episode. And this week, it is crazy. Our reading this week,
there's some stuff in there.
Proved really wild. It was disturbing. It was the best.
No, it was.
It was disturbing.
Yeah, like if this was a movie, it would be really bad.
I would be shocked. I would be like,
yeah, it's a lot going on, man. It's a lot. So, anyway, how was your week?
I purposely waited for you to ask me because I always ask you first.
Yeah. I don't mind going first. You want me to go first?
No. I'll go. Well, okay. Well, it doesn't matter. You can go first.
Okay, I'll go first.
How was your week, honey?
It was my week was good. It was eventful. I learned some things.
It was. Okay, sorry. I was like, where were you? Okay.
Yeah.
I do remember. Oh my gosh, I can never keep up with the weeks. Go ahead.
Yeah. It was eventful. It was good. I got a lot of stuff done. I'm starting to see consistency, and I developed some new habits that I like, and I'm really appreciative of God making these. I'm just appreciative of God's blessing, and I'm just happy that faith without works isn't dead. But I see myself having more faith. I can see my goal in mind. I don't know what the journey looks like, but I've gained the confidence to start walking it.
Yeah, it does.
So, that's where I'm at this week, and I'm looking forward to being even more comfortable and establishing some more habits, and stop worrying about the little things. This week I started noticing I worry about the small things too much, and I'm not talking about paying attention to detail. That's different.
Right.
Worrying about the small things, the things you can't control.
Right. Okay, I understand.
Like can't control traffic.
Right.
So it is what it is. Stop worrying about that, and I'm trying to focus more in the moment.
Yeah.
I keep saying that, but it's very vital that I think that people do that. It's very vital that I do that because if you're focused on traffic, you got to focus on you get to drive to work.
Mm-hmm.
You woke up this morning. You have a job.
Yeah.
You get to go to. So you got to look at. You got to be more You got to be more gracious in the moment. So that's what I'm starting to really focus on. So it's very interesting. It's a good week. My weeks have gotten, probably from this show, my weeks are getting better and better, and that's a good thing. Now, listen, it's not going to be perfect, and I'm human, and I'm still going to, as we're about to read, I still, do human things.
What?
That's how we're made, guys. We're wired like this, so. But that's why we're reading the Bible to just know to stop. You're never gonna stop being human, but you can realize, I can adjust it in a moment and try to get better. So that's it. How was your week?
Yeah. I just wanted to give it up to you because I have seen your growth, and I've seen you become more and more consistent, and obviously I don't know how it feels on the inside, but I know making changes feels very uncomfortable. So good job.
Thank you.
So my week was good. I am also making some changes, and I haven't been as consistent as I want to be, but I've been more consistent than I have been in the past. So it's just about baby steps. This week, unfortunately, I chose to focus on things that were out of my control. So I experienced a bit of anxiety this week, and it's something that I realized. I think I've said this before in another show. It's something that I realized it's actually a gift, because whenever I get like really super anxious, the only thing I can do is just pray, go over like memory verses. A lot of times I'll start planning stuff, like if it gets really bad and I'm like, oh my God, the world's ending. Like, not the world as we know it, but like, oh my gosh, I'm so behind on this project, or I'm so whatever. Like, if I get really worried about something, I'll start planning it. So, I had made a comment months ago, like, why would God cure my anxiety if it's helping me do what I need to be doing? So, I had some anxiety, but I would, what I just want to attribute that also to one thing that didn't happen this week was we altered our reading schedule. And I really am drawing a correlation. You know how you find yourself saying something over and over, and it, you start to study it. And I realized that a lot of times when I'm like, oh, I had a really anxiety-filled week, it's weeks that we weren't reading every day. We like altered our reading schedule and like put it towards the end of the week like we did this week. So I think that I'm drawing a connection that like on the weeks that we don't read every day, it kind of takes its toll on my psyche. But then, it's also just could be because I'm, just having a regular human experience. But, yeah, with that said, I had a pretty good week. It wasn't like I was suffering or like I was in pain. And that's one of the things that I prayed about too, because you're having this feeling that something's wrong when everything around you is going right. Like, so then this guilt seeps in, like, well, you don't have anything to complain about. Why do you even feel anything? You should be jumping for joy. And yeah, you should be on paper, but it still doesn't stop it from feeling a way inside. So, like I said, I prayed, and I'm coming to grips with the idea that it may never go away, right? Like, this is just me and my anxiety. It's so funny because I like to laugh at stuff, and I make these little like doodles and stuff in my journals and my notebooks and my planners, and I draw these little monsters, and I have a fear monster and an anxiety monster. And my thinking is that, okay, well, they're not going to control me. Even though they're there, we're just going to treat them like old friends, and they're going to hop in the car and we're going to do this day. And they just can't be too loud. You know what I mean? Like, if they're going to be there, they're going to be there, and we're going to, we're going to go everywhere together, but we're going to do this. We're going to do this day. We're not going to let them, drive. So, anyway.
And eventually they'll get out the car. Maybe.
Eventually, maybe they'll get out the car, but I just know that they're not driving, and no matter what, I'm going to just look to God. And so, like I said, I try to look at it with the silver lining that, sometimes when I'm having just like a fabulous day, like I had this really fun day a couple of weeks ago. It was like a Friday. Oh, and then I had a really fun day a couple Saturdays ago. When you're just highly aware of like how it's fun and how you're having a fun day. And I mean, I probably prayed that day too, but like sometimes when I'm just like having a bomb day and like I'm listening to music and I'm driving around and I'm, I wonder how many times I pray on those days, next to the days where I'm just like anxiety filled and almost just, weirded out. And I'm just like praying all the time that day, like, God, I know this is, you didn't give me the spirit of fear. I'm just like bringing in verses. I'm writing out prayers. I'm in my war binder. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's a mixture of both. but I feel like I pray on those days more. So, all in all, I'll just say, even though I said all that and it sounds like am about to have myself committed, I feel really good. It's just, you go through those things, and every day it's not going to be some like honky dory, like sugar sticks and rainbows kind of day. And I wasn't suffering. I just, I just suffered some anxiety, and I don't think that I had a bad time either. It was just not all, celebrational, if you will. But I had, all in all, like, I had a good week. I showed up everywhere I needed to show up, at the gym, at work, and I did all the things that I had slated to do. So it was a good week, But anyway, this reading, though, with Judges, really brought it home for me on the understanding of the human condition and how, when left to our own devices, we will just keep just messing up. So, I guess with that said, I guess we should get into it.
Yeah, this is
because
crazy.
What did we read this week? We read from here.
Yeah.
Judges 9 through
21.
Through 21.
Yep. So Judges 9 through 11. It has the 6th judge Abimelech, and the 7th and 9th judges Tola, Jair, and Japheth. Now Abimelech, he was the son of Gideon, whose name is Jabral, whose name became Jabral.
Yeah, because Gideon's dad had named him, renamed him once he got rid of an idol or something like that. I can't exactly remember what he tore down a tower, and
he became the name Jabal because
he tore down an idol in the middle of the city or something.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out.
It was the altar of Baal. He destroyed it. And that's why he became Jabal became his name.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, so we're on to Abimelech. Now, Abimelech is Gideon's son.
Yeah.
But Gideon was a busy dude because I think right at the end of Judges 8. Yeah, Judges 8:30 says, "Now Gideon had 70 sons born to him because he had many wives." Yeah. What?
Yeah.
70 sons. And then he had a concubine in Shechem, and that's who had Abimelech with him. Yeah. So, and I was having some challenges figuring out what they actually meant by concubine in the text, because sometimes I feel like they mean common law wife, and other times I didn't know if they meant it's a mistress in addition to a wife. But I don't know if that really is significant, but I noticed they use the word concubine and the word wife, so there is a distinction. But sometimes, especially later on, we're going to get into, sometimes they say concubine, and I don't know if they mean, and then they interchangeably say the wife of. So that's towards the end of Judges, but
we gotta look it up in the Bible dictionary, perhaps, and then
it might become. But I think a
clear
explanation. Anyway, that wasn't even what you were saying, and I cut you off, and I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But Abimelech, Abimelech was considered the 6th judge. But what Abimelech did was he killed all his brothers. He killed all except for one.
Jotham.
And Abimelech was pretty evil. He kind of ruled over Israel, and he wasn't really a good guy. And he didn't really uh, believe in God. Like, he didn't talk to God. He didn't pray to God. He was kind of obsessed with power,
Mm.
and he wanted power, and he wanted to rule over people. He had an evil spirit. He was violent, man. You kill all your brothers, 70 brothers, and you talking about you need one ruler? I mean, that's pretty rough, man.
And he kind of tricked people into even getting in that position anyway, because he was like asking the people, like, "Hey, do you want 70 people to rule over you, or one person?"
Yeah.
And they, and then I don't know how it was set up because his dad was the judge, and then I guess it kind of got passed down. But then I don't think his other brothers had went to their family and made that statement, right? But he took it upon himself to be like, "Oh, do you want me to rule, or do you want them to rule?" And if he was the only person who did that, then that was kind of like, I wouldn't even say unfair. It was just not, of good. It was not in good spirit. Then he goes so far as to kill them, which is like, okay, you're brothers. But okay, sorry. Let me say this. One thing I thought was interesting was that when you were just going over how he wasn't a good guy, but how we'll see how some of these people are not horrible, but they're not like God. They're not following God, but they'll sometimes call on God. I don't know that Abimelech ever called on God.
He did.
But
he was evil.
It made me realize that sometimes God will use evil leadership and still use them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's interesting to me because I'm sure the people at some point were like, "Oh my God, what have we done?" The people like that were under Abimelech.
Yes.
That he ruled over.
So then, I guess the people, like overthrew Abimelech, and you got to realize, it's starting to get to the point where Israel's not even talking to God.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like, God told me, this, and God said this. You start to see that less and less, more as when we were in, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers. That's all you heard. Every book, there was a conversation with God that was happening. Right? Even in Joshua, there was a conversation. In Judges, there's no conversation. Which is very interesting. And we're going to get to another judge that saved Israel, but really didn't talk to God. Like you just said, God used them. But let's answer this question. Oh, and then Judges, Tola, and Jair, they were just, regular judges. It's not that much information on them. There were plenty of judges. I don't know the total amount, maybe 15, I think. But they were judges. So here's the question. Like Abimelech, some of the people today have been enticed by evil power. Oh, like Abimelech, think of some people today who have been enticed to evil by power.
Wow. Well, I'll go first. I'm not going to name any names, but I'm just going to put some context to what I thought was interesting. When Abimelech, but that's a really funny question because this is a loaded question. But when Abimelech was first sort of like put in power, it made a mention of how they gave him this money and he put all of these evil and like worthless people. They said worthless and even evil people in power, and they obviously if they're calling them worthless in the Bible, they obviously weren't really doing that great of a job. So I'm thinking of him like his executives, right, or his go-to team, and later in Judges 9:30, there's this guy called Zebul, who they call the ruler of the city. Um, Gal, the son of Ebed, was saying like earlier, like, who is Shechem that we should serve Abimelech? So here comes a person who's like saying like,
Yeah.
this Abimelech dude is not really that awesome, and like, why are we even listening to him? And then Zebul, who worked for Abimelech, like overheard it but didn't like confront him, like, why are you talking about my boy? He just basically like overheard it and went back and told Abimelech.
Yeah.
And then Abimelech was going to come down and overtake Gal, who talked about him. And I thought this was interesting. You know, when Gal first saw the people coming down the mountaintop, he looked to Zebul, who had overheard him and sent out for them, and he was like, "Look, there's people coming down from the mountaintops." This is in Judges 9:36.
Mm-hmm.
And Zebul said to him, "You're only seeing the shadow of the mountains as if they were men." That was his first comment back to him in response, as if to say, "Oh, your eyes are playing tricks on you."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a prevalent thing sometimes, day to day, is like people will make you think you're tripping for saying the truth or for seeing something and calling it out, and people will make you think you're tripping. And I think without making calling out people who are evil, I'll just call out maybe some actions and put perspective to things that I've noticed in the past week, which is really beyond that. But like sometimes people will make people who tell the truth, like, okay, so you have a person who tells the truth, right, who says truthful things, and I think sometimes, a lot of times actually, if it's too costly to people in power who are not truth tellers, there are steps taken to make those people sound like they're off the rocker, or like they shouldn't be trusted or have credibility. So I noticed that, there's a bit of gaslighting when certain people speak out and say, this isn't right. And then there's all these like narratives and storylines about those people as if they aren't to be trusted or they aren't to be heard. And so I think that's really wild. And then I also think that, some people today who've been enticed to evil by power, I think you could think of some people yourself. But, I think those people have characteristics of putting people in danger or hurting other people, and they're not guided by the principles of God. That's what I'll say. I'm not going to name any names because I'm not going to judge anybody, but I have some people in mind, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I'm not going to say any, I'm not going to say any names. But what I know about evil and power is I hear it a lot like together. Like it's sometimes it's a lot of people that were in power that were evil, and sometimes I wonder, like, you become so blind into what's right that you'll do whatever it takes and to be a person of power. And on that pathway, you lose who you really are. Or it heightens who you really are.
Right. Like power is a drug or something?
Yeah, it's something that feeds your ego so much that, it just transforms you, and you make decisions not based on the right thing. You make decisions based on what's going to keep you there.
Right, or what's going to get you more.
What's going to get you, yeah. It's not even about what's right and wrong and what's good and bad. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm still in this position of power.
You know what's interesting? I wouldn't even call those people evil. I think, it doesn't say that. It says enticed to evil. Enticed to evil, yeah. It's a greed, right? Yeah. It's a glutton It's a gluttonous
Yeah.
spirit after,
Kind of like, almost like an addiction.
yeah, after something that makes you feel worthy,
Yeah.
right?
Prideful, stroking your ego. Yeah. And it gets to the point, that you don't even, well, you shouldn't care what people think, but I mean, it's just like, golly, man. You would do all that just to be in that position. It's not good, but I'm not gonna name no names.
You gotta care what some people think, though, even if you don't care like what the masses think.
Yeah.
I feel like, and we talked about this earlier when we were reading this the other day or yesterday, just like the overall theme that, they kept saying it in here too, like, the men were guided by their own thoughts of whatever that was right to them, because there was no leadership. Now, I think that's a real thing, because people who decide to go after evil aren't, I mean, I have to think that they're not like seeking evil. They're looking out for themselves, and they're feeding their own needs.
Yeah.
But they're becoming, or taking evil as sort of a pathway, because they know that that's what's going to get them the immediate, quench of what they want.
Yeah.
But I think that's interesting, because it's like, left to man's own devices, he's going to do whatever it is that he wants without being checked. I just want to just going off of your last comment, it's like, I think it's important that we all have at least one person, right, who could check us and bring us back and make sure that we're not, in the upside down. like okay, like, somebody who's checking for you, who could tell you like, hey, you gotta check yourself, or you gotta get yourself together. So anyway,
all right, so now we're gonna go to the ninth judge, right, which is Japan. Right, that's how you say it.
Oh, listen, don't give me the line. I want to say it's Japheth, but people, guys, listen. There's so many different names in here. I think it could have been Jephthah.
We're gonna go with Japheth.
All right, we're gonna go with Japheth, and you're just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah. So Japheth was the ninth judge. So Japheth was, okay, and then there were judges too. So Japheth was the ninth judge. Then the 10th judge was Ephraim.
It looks like Jephthah, but we're gonna say Japheth.
Could be Jephthah.
I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna go with it. Because look, it doesn't have a TH at the end. It has a Jephthah.
Jephthah.
Let's just call him
Jeff.
Good old Jeff. You're not comfortable with that?
Yeah. I mean, I can't pronounce it either.
And it's not like it's Jesus or something. We can nickname him.
Yeah. Okay, so, I mean, we'll get into that. I was about to say something, but that was rude. Anyway, the ninth judge, Jeff. I was going to say something ridiculous. All right, the 10th judge is Ephraim. The 11th judge was Ibzan, Elon, Abdon. And then the 15th judge was Samson. So Japheth and Samson we're really going to focus on because they kind of stood out. So Japheth was a mighty warrior, but he wasn't really a believer in God. But he did call on God to help deliver the Israelites from the Ammonites. But the Israelites called on Japheth, but Japheth wasn't chosen by God. So we're starting to see from the first judge, that was Deborah, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Was she the first judge?
The fourth judge.
Oh.
Deborah, right? Or the first judge, like Ehud. They were chosen by God. Japheth was not. He was chosen by the people. So the more that we get into Judges, the less and less we're starting to see the presence of God and the presence of man more. Which some could say that's how it's like today. So Japheth, he came from the mountains. He was a great warrior. And he saved Israel from the Ammonites. But here's the thing what he did. Because he did not know God, he said that he will offer whatever comes to the doors out of my house as a burnt offering. Now, we've read the text, and it could be, you could take it two different ways. God did save the Israelites from the Ammonites, and once he came home and his daughter came home. Now, this is two things that we read the text.
Let me read it because I don't know if it was clear.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, Japheth was in battle, and he said to God, "If you'll give the Ammonites into my hand," and this is 11:30, Judges 11:30.
Yeah.
He made a vow to the Lord and said, "If you will indeed give the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the Ammonites, it shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering." So he's like, whatever comes out of the doors of my house. Okay, please continue.
Yeah. His daughter came out the doors of his house.
Yeah.
Now, some historians are saying, what I'm about to read next is you could take it literally or you can't. So what happened was, his daughter said, "Father, you opened your mouth to the Lord. Do me according to what is going out your mouth. Now that the Lord has avenged your enemies on the Ammonites." Right? So Judges 11:39. 11:38. Jeff. He said, "Go out." Then he sent her away. For 2 months she departed, she and her companions, and she wept for her virginity on the mountains. And at the end of 2 months she returned to her father, and did with her according to his vow that he had made. She had never known a man, and it became custom in Israel. So here's the thing. Back then, because Israel mingled with the Canaanites, and the Canaanites did a lot of human sacrifices, we don't know if he sacrificed his daughter physically or sacrificed her virginity where she can't be with a man and he has no lineage. But because he did not know God, and God didn't tell him that, he offered it. He would have just simply prayed and gave God a burnt offering, a grain offering, he would have been okay. I don't even think the Lord sometimes even asked for that. But if he would have gave it, it would have been okay. But because he didn't, and this is the valuable lesson. First, words are very powerful. Right? The second thing is, you don't know God, right? And you don't know how to pray. You said this earlier. And you're praying for crazy things. You gotta be careful because you don't know God. You're gonna do things that He didn't ask you to do, and it's only detrimental to you.
Exactly. I'll just say this because it's like they didn't understand how God operated.
Yeah.
So, this person in particular, there's another person later on, but because they were unfamiliar with God's ways and God's like operating qualities like character, he basically wanted to trade God, right? And I'm not gonna lie, I've made vows like that too, where it's like, God, if you just get me out of this, I'll, blah blah blah. Unfortunately, I've also gone back on those vows.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there. But so because these people are unaware of God's, operating status or what have you, they're doing things the hard way, and now he made a vow to God and he honored it, and he's now having to sacrifice his daughter, whether it be as a burnt offering, as a human sacrifice, which God was not even doing. So, if God wants to take somebody out, he gonna take them out, or he gonna let them go the way that he has for them. So as far as I could see, he's never asked for somebody to be offered to him. Like, he has taken people and he has gone back and said, get rid of this person, right? But it's been like a stoning or something. I don't ever recall.
He did ask, but see, he was having a conversation with Abram.
Okay.
But that's different than
he's not going to tell somebody.
Yeah,
I just feel like this wasn't it.
It wasn't
and the idea is that they didn't know how God operates, because everybody else was asking God, like, is this what you have for me, or tell me what to do, or they were making an offering and waiting to hear from God. And this isn't how he normally operated. Like, he would send an angel and the angel would say what to do, or he would give a command and have it be almost repetitive, like, you know what I'm saying, and then the person who he was giving the command to would be talking with him or praying, and the answer would come. They weren't just saying like, hey, do this for that, tit for tat, like, we're gonna make a deal, God, right? So it didn't make any sense to me that he would do this. But this is kind of what we do present day, because we think that God operates sometimes like people in the world operate, like you got to give something to get something, like, well, you can't get a meal unless you pay for it, or nothing in life is free, or you have to do this and do that in order to get what God has for you. And that's just not the way he operates. But it is interesting how he used these people regardless of how much they knew about him or how much they had followed him. He still used them, and I do think that they were, as obedient as they could be, I guess, perhaps without the knowledge of God. But these days, I just telling James, like, there's no excuse. Like, there's Bibles everywhere, and you can figure it out.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? We're just distracted these days. I think that's the major thing these days. It's not that you don't know or you don't have the access to. It's that you were distracted from it. So sorry.
Samson. Now, Samson is another judge. Now, you probably hear stories about Samson all the time, movies. I've read the story, not millions of times, so I heard about it.
I've heard about Samson and Delilah so many times.
So yeah,
and I never even read it until
now.
This week.
It's very interesting that how it is, or what what really happened. Samson, so he was blessed by God, right? His mother was barren, and an angel came and said, "You're gonna have a son, and he will be a Nazarite to God, and he shall save Israel from the hand of the Philistines." So Samson was blessed. He was. And, his mom was like, "Oh, it's a man of God." And then, she told her husband, and then, the angel appeared again. And then they were asking what they do with the child. And they were like, just don't cut his hair. And the Lord has a mission from him. And, the angel told Manoah, do not, it said, Judges 13, verse 14. She may not, Manoah, who is Samson's mother, this is what the angel said, She may not eat anything that comes from the vine, which is right, which is neither drink wine or strong drink or eat anything unclean. Right? So that.
I think Manoah was the dad.
Oh, Manoah was the dad?
Yeah, because in 22
oh,
it says Manoah says to his wife.
Yeah, Manoah was the dad. And his mom was.
Does he even say what his wife's name was?
No.
It just says his wife who was infertile and had no children.
Yeah, so it was,
yeah, she was a nameless.
She probably gets named.
Wait, maybe. No.
Okay, anyway. But here's what his parents did do. They did give a burnt offering. They did. They did. Yep, and a grain offering. And when they did that, the angel went like fire into heaven. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of agree with what Manoah said. He was like, "Oh, we about to die."
Right, because we have seen God.
We've seen God.
It is in Judges 13. Manoah said to his wife, "We will certainly die because we have seen God."
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. Like, okay, and she was like, "No."
She said, She said to him, "If the Lord had desired to kill us, He would not have received a burnt offering and grain offering from our hands, nor would He have shown us all these things, nor would He announce such things at these times." So basically, she hadn't gotten pregnant yet, and she knew that it was going to come to pass because God had said it. But that was the spirit of the Lord. Like, that was the angel of God that came to them, and they thought they had saw. I mean, it was God sent. So
then now Samson grew up to be a pretty strong man, and it's a story where he killed a lion, and in the carcass of the lion, there was a swarm of bees, and in the body of the lion, and he scraped up the honey, and he ate the honey, and he gave it to his mom and dad. So, I think Samson was a man that God sent, to save the Israelites from the Philistines. Now Samson was he was a little wild though.
I guess that was the significance of that story, because I understood why we came to find that he tore the lion in half like it was a lamb, and he was so strong. Like, that's kind of, but I did not understand the significance of him getting honey out of the carcass of the lion. Like, that is so gross to me, having worked in food service for so long. It's like definitely weird. And the fact that he didn't tell his parents stuck out to me, because he didn't tell his parents a couple of things. He didn't tell his parents that he killed the lion, and then he didn't tell his parents that, "Oh, I got this honey that I'm getting ready to give you out of the carcass of a lion." So I don't know if that was just to say like that he wasn't all the way 100, keeping it 100 with people, or what, but I just thought that was a weird thing to do, and I don't think people were would have been okay with that if he would have told them like, "Hey, here's some honey, guess where I got it from." Then he got this riddle thing happening, and nobody would have ever put that together. So, but it was kind of like a bet, so whatever.
And the riddle thing was kind of how he was like arrogant, because he knew he was strong. And in the Bible, it's saying the older that he grew, the more he would start growing apart from the Lord. Like, for instance, I just read the carcass lion was against the Nazarite vow. No, you're not supposed to do that.
That's why he didn't tell his parents.
That's why he didn't tell his parents.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah. So then he, after he made the bet with the Philistines and they solved the riddle, he killed all 30 of them.
Now, let me just say this. With Samson, I see, from my perspective, that he had some challenges with women. And, he was just like, I would venture to say, like, easily deceived by them, because that first woman that he was supposed to take as his wife, ended up telling people, and they threatened her life, but then they ended up killing her anyway. So, but she just didn't have any loyalty to him, and she was a Philistine, I believe.
Yep.
So it wasn't like his people, or whatever. His parents actually wanted him to find somebody within their tribe or community, but he chose one of the Philistines, and he, it was unfortunate the way that it happened, but this is the way that God wanted. This is the way that it was going to happen. But his first wife or whatever, I guess soon to be wife, I don't know if they were even married yet, but she gave away the secrets of the riddle, and that ended up poorly. And then later on, he's having trouble with women, and he's sleeping with prostitutes, and I don't know what significance that was, other than to probably show that he just was away from God.
Yeah, he was away from God, and so but Samson was very strong, and once again he loved women, which is everybody is what I'm starting to learn in the Bible is even great people have. If you're human and you're great, you have a vice, and you just have to be consistent and stay strong in the Lord. Now, we're gonna see what happens with Samson, and this is what I think makes a good point of the story. So he meets Delilah, who was a prostitute.
Delilah wasn't a prostitute, was she?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think that he had slept with the prostitute, and then he met Delilah. Was Delilah a prostitute for real?
After he loved the woman, after he loved the woman in the valley of Sorek, name was Delilah, and lords of Philistine came to her. So it says Samson went to Gaza and he saw a prostitute and went into her. So
I don't think that was Delilah, though. I think he went and slept with a prostitute, and then he went and found Delilah, right? Because
maybe
in 16:1, he went to Samson went to Gaza and saw a prostitute there and went into her. The Gazites were told he has a prostitute, so they surrounded the place where he was, and they were like, "We're going to ambush him in the morning." Only he left at midnight, and it took the doors of the city gate where they was trying to lock him up. He picked them joints up. Now,
so then he loved
after this, 16:4, after this, he fell in love with a Philistine woman living in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. I don't think she was a prostitute. Okay. I could be wrong. She's not my favorite person in the Bible.
Maybe.
I do not like Delilah.
Well, she did do something for some.
She says Delilah was not necessarily a prostitute, but she did do something strange.
I want to find out her occupation.
Well, you wanna go get the source right now?
She might not be a prostitute, but she's prostitute-ish. Okay, she's doing some things that.
She's prostitute-ish.
She's prostitute-ish.
I don't know. Like I said, she did something strange for a piece of change, but I don't know that she was out there selling her body, her body. All right, I'm in this Holman Bible Dictionary, and James is in the Chronological Study Bible. Delilah. Okay, here we go. Oh, does it say what she did?
No. Value money more than relationships.
Mm-hmm. Gold digger. She was a gold digger. That's not the same one. Personal name meaning with long hair hanging down. A woman from the valley of Sorek who was loved by Samson. She was probably a Philistine. She enticed Samson into revealing to her the secret was good.
So she wasn't okay, guys. All right. So Delilah is not, after further research, Delilah is not prostitute, but I don't know.
Say your term.
She was prostitute-ish.
Prostitute-ish.
Prostitute-ish. You can say it better than me.
All right. I knew what you meant.
Anyway, so this is the thing. She was not I can admit I was wrong. I took it the wrong way. She was just a woman from the valley of Sorek, but she was not very good to Samson. And what she did was she seduced him, and she was trying to see where his strength lies, because he was strong. As there's multiple examples of how strong Samson was, because he was, blessed by the Lord. Like, the Lord knew that Samson was going to be great to take down the Philistines and save Israel. So the Lord has blessed him with this strength, and what is that term? The God-given ability probably came from Samson. That term, because that's exactly who he was.
That's a good assessment.
So, so the Philistines offered Delilah and said, "We will give you 1,100 or 1,100 pieces of silver." And so Delilah kept trying to ask Samson where his power came from, and she kept asking him. She tied him with rope. He broke it easy.
Yeah, because he kept telling her, my strength lies in this. Yeah. And then she would do it and be like, fake calling on the Philistines, and then he would break the thing. Very odd, very odd exchange. I mean, gold digger 101. Like, she was just telling herself, and then it was like, I'm sorry, it was very disturbing to look at this, because it was like she was taking advantage of him right in front of his eyes, and he knew, because he wasn't telling her the truth, and she kept saying like, "Oh, you're making a fool of me," and da 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 da. It's just like, well, what's your motive here, lady? Yeah. So that it wasn't fun to read that, because I was just like, where's this going?
Yeah, and she kept doing it over and over again, and to the point she kept asking Samson so much. Which, this is another thing, right? When you're away from God, you don't see those type of things. He probably didn't notice what she was doing, because he has been separated from God, so he can't, when you're separated from God and people are doing little subtle things like that, you don't pick up on it. So he didn't pick up on it. No discernment. He didn't pick up on it. He was like, oh, whatever.
Right.
And she kept asking him and asking him and asking him. And then he finally gave in. And he said, "A razor has never come to my head." And he was like, oh, okay, so let me do this. This is Judges 16, verse 17. And he told her with all his heart. He said to her, "A razor has never come upon my head, for I've been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man." And, she said, okay. And she told the Philistines, and he fell asleep in her lap. He fell asleep with her head on her lap, and she shaved his head. And he didn't know that she said, she tied him a rope and said, the Philistines are upon you. He's like, I'll break free like I always. And he couldn't, because the Lord had left him. The Lord had left him. And they were pretty bad to him, man. They gouged out his eyes. They made him they bound him with shackles. He had the ground mill, But with all that happened to him, his hair started growing back, and he started connecting back to the Lord. And, when that started happening, he remembered, who he was. And he remembered God.
Now, he did call out to God.
Yeah, he did.
But see, it doesn't say that God talked back to him. And he was actually doing some, a little bit of dirt with that, because he wanted revenge.
Yeah, he did. He wanted revenge. But he did what he was meant to do.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, that's true.
God granted his wish, but it took him to go to a dark place. You know, sometimes it happens. Sometimes you forget where you're at with God and go to a real dark place, man. And sometimes you gotta pray to get out of it, and God brings you out of it. But I have a saying, man. Sometimes this is not for everybody, but sometimes you go through a dark to get to the light. Sometimes, and dark's not fun. It's not a fun place. But that's what happened to Samson. He was at his lowest point, but he still prayed to God, and his hair came back. And as soon as he prayed to God and connected back with God, he was able to fulfill God's will. So that's Samson. Now, all right, here's the question. Samson was seduced by surface beauty. Reflect on a circumstance wherein this has happened or could have happened to you.
Wow.
That can go so many different ways.
It can. I'm not thinking about a relationship. I'm thinking about surface beauty as far as when everything that glitters ain't gold.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, there have been some times where, things have gotten me, and I just talked about a couple weeks ago about how I would, have a lot of things and then have to purge them. But they weren't ever as detrimental to me as what has happened to Samson. Samson's so enticed by beauty that he puts himself in danger. And I think I've been blessed to have a level of discernment with me that I can tell, and that's not even I can tell if people have bad motives or not. It's just that somehow something will set my spidey senses off, and I'll be like, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore, or I'd rather go do this. You know what I'm saying? And it's not even me doing the detective work, figuring out this person's trying to hem me up like Samson and Delilah, but more so just I think I've typically I haven't gotten into these types of detrimental circumstances because overall I've pretty much been able to keep God's been blessing me with discernment where maybe I don't even know why, but I didn't get into those situations. And maybe I have, I just can't think of one. Gotten into a situation because you were enticed by the way something looked on the surface? Maybe a situation or a... Now I'm really rethinking this because...
it's a... I'm trying to think.
I mean, so obviously it's not been on this scale, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that's now coming to me is circumstances where I assumed that, and again, discernment, but I assumed that, this will be a great situation because it looks like a great situation.
Yeah, I've had that happen.
Right? And then I come to find out that, no, ill. And, case in point, I'm going to tell this quick story. There was a time, where I wanted to work downtown at this one restaurant. Mm-hmm. And I won't even say the name of the restaurant, but it was a fancier-ish restaurant. And I remember going in there and admiring some of the decor and just being really enamored with working there and just knowing that wow, this is a really cool place. I can see myself working here. And at the same time, I was, I had an opportunity at a place down the street that was less fancy, but it was a wholesome place. And and anyway, I'll kind of wrap it up after this. But I went to the one place that I really wanted to work for an interview, and I remember the manager being so nasty that to the point where I was like, what is this deal? Like, literally, it was something so small. Like, I had called a few times and left messages and emails, and then nobody responded back to me. So I walked in to see about my application. It was something very simple that, you know, in that industry happens all the time. And sometimes you can catch a manager if you're there in person. And the guy was so rude. And then I don't think he realized how rude he was, how he had turned me off, that I thought to myself, oh, I don't want to work here. That he actually was like trying to schedule an interview with me for later. And after he had been so rude, and I was like, there is no way that I'm going to work anywhere near this person. And if this is the culture here, like, forget it. Right. And then I even got a call back after that. And I was thinking to myself, they are crazy if they think somebody's going to work there. So I ended up taking this job at this other place. And we had a really, really good laugh, me and some of the staff members there, weeks after I got there, because it actually turned out to be like a really successful like environment for me, and they were making money. And I remember saying to them at one point, and they all laughed, like we were all sitting back there just like, you know, talking one day after work or as we were about to close, and I was like, you know, I came in here and I just felt like you guys were so nice and sweet and wholesome, and I was like, they can't possibly be making any money in there, they're too nice. And they all just like, boy, like busted out laughing. And I remember, you know, I was still like at the end of my training at that point, but then I came to realize like, oh, they're making bank, because everybody was really good at their job. And the way that it was set up, it was like you could have, you know, the way that it was set up, like that's the most money I've ever made at an establishment, right? Like a few times, like, you know, but I was just like, wow, like, I don't know what made me think that, like, but like I said, everything in glitters ain't gold, because I thought I wanted to work at this other place because it was a fancier place. And come to find out, you know, that's not what was going on in there. So anyway.
Just like, okay, I mean, we can go, man, I can go so many different ways. I could go with, you know, sometimes, I mean, you could go with appliances.
Oh, so true.
You could go with electronics.
So true.
You could go with shoes. You know, everybody's bought that pair of shoes that look so good, and they hurt your feet. And
you can't even walk. And that's the whole point of shoes anyway.
Where's the comfortability level at?
Yeah. Where's the support?
Where's the support? I feel like I'm walking on concrete.
I've done that with a car before.
Yeah.
Where I had so many problems,
That's what I think it is. Like, you think you want, you know, it looks so beautiful on the surface level, and then it ends up being Delilah. You end up paying more than you really bargained for.
Yeah.
And, you know, it could get you in some bad situations.
That's about to be a code name, y'all.
Oh, my gosh.
Like, oh, don't let that thing Delilah you now.
Terrible, man.
Oh, my gosh. Shout out to all the Delilahs out there, like people named Delilah, who I'm sure you're not like this, right? But if I ever meet a Delilah from now, I don't think I've ever met a Delilah. If I ever meet one from now on, I'm gonna just,
I don't know, it's a tough
say
thing,
a prayer,
because everybody's just gonna mention that. Anyway, so Judges 17 through 18, we're talking about Micah's idols and the Danites. So this is what we keep coming into, starting with the end of Joshua, and now we're at Judges 17. God is less and less and less prevalent. His voice isn't really heard as it should be, and like now, like Micah, this is about idols. You know, there was no king of Israel, and we talked about this. Sometimes when there's no leadership and you leave somebody on idol, you self-destruct.
Yeah, the thing that they kept saying was said at least 4 times. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Every man did what was right in his own eyes.
Yes.
It was said 4 times, and I just read that from Judges 17:6.
Yep. So, and then 18, they're talking about like stealing idols. So, like, they're not even praising God anymore. It's just like, hey, will this priest worship these idols for me? And it's like, it seems like the Israelites have come so far and forgotten the Lord, the God, and where they came from. And it just, I swear it wasn't that long ago, I guess it was, that Joshua reminded them. Moses reminded them, and then Joshua reminded them, like, look, if you do not obey God, you're going to be captive for 40 years, and you're going to take on the customs of people like the Canaanites, like we're about to really get into in this next description. But here's the question. Micah's idols infested an entire community eventually. How do some of our sins affect those around us? How do some of our sins affect those around us? I can answer that. Just kind of like piggybacking off what I had said last time. So you can influence somebody, right? Or like these, it's called peer pressure, right? Your sin you can influence somebody to do everything that you're doing or follow you, because some people, they go towards leadership and look towards it, right? Because not everybody is a leader, right? So if you're wilding out, you could create a cult. That's how cults are created. Like, sometimes people have no direction, and sometimes people with direction see that and they take advantage of it. And that's how it can lead to that can lead to a dangerous outcome for all people, man. And I think that's how, some of our sins can affect those around us, because it would influence them. Influence is, as I'm starting to realize, reading the Bible is a very powerful thing. Your thoughts, your actions, your influence. So it's very powerful. These words don't really get talked about as much. Other words do. But influence is a very strong word, because without God, you can get influenced by anything.
Yeah. So true. So I guess my answer to that, it says Michael's idol refused. All right. How do some of our sins affect those around us? Yeah. I think it's interesting, like you said, that people, without God's influence and without a leader, right? It's just like they're veering further and further away. So when it says Micah's idol eventually infested an entire community, it's odd, because it's like it wasn't just him. I think our sins affect those around us, because one sin leads to the next sin, leads to the next sin, leads to the next sin. Like, and nobody's checking anybody, nobody's holding anybody accountable, nobody's holding themselves accountable, really, is what it comes down to, because it's like they're not all after one common good. They're not sharing a sense of respect, or what respect in a community means. They're just kind of all doing their own thing. So like, it's just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. If somebody steals something from you, and then you go back and steal something from them, but like a little more, and then somebody comes back and steals something from you, but then a little more, and then they punch you, and then the next person comes and does something a little worse than that, so it's like, I think that means after a while the whole place is corrupt, because everybody's doing a little bit extra in the wrong direction. Yeah. And it just quickly becomes out of hand. And there's no standard of like respect.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Judges 19 through 21. This was pretty shocking.
Yeah, it was.
It was pretty
So
shocking.
sorry, guys.
Look at what I got for you.
Okay.
All right. So what happened was Judges 19 through 21 is the first mutilation in Israel, and Israel punishes the tribe of Benjamin. So the story is a Levite and his concubine, which you had a question about earlier. So I was reading it, which you were like, "What is a concubine?" And I didn't know what it
Right.
was.
I kind of understood what it means
Yeah.
modern day, but you want to read it or you want me to read it?
Oh, go ahead, read it.
So James found it. He looked it up for us in our home and study Bible.
Yeah.
Or study Bible dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so concubine, a wife of lower status than a primary wife, usually a slave. Taking of concubines dates back to at least to the patriarchal period. Both Abraham and Nahor had concubines. Tribal chiefs, kings, and other wealthy men generally took concubines. Gideon had a concubine. Saul had at least one concubine named Rizpah. David had many, but Solomon took the practice to its extreme. I don't think we've gotten to Solomon
We
yet.
haven't gotten to Solomon.
But
the
concubines of wives and wives of chiefs and kings were symbols of their virility and power. Therefore, having intercourse with the concubine of the ruler was an act of rebellion. So it goes on to kind of explain more, but a concubine, whether purchased or won in battle, was entitled to some legal protection, but was her husband's property. Mm. So it says here, like, concubine is kind of like a wife, but like lesser. A barren woman might offer her maid to her husband, hoping she would conceive. Right. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like a side piece wife or something like that. I mean, that's the best way I can explain it. A side piece is not a wife, but I mean, like, it's like a lesser. If you have
like a wife and then you have another woman that.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't translate to what we got going on in America, because once you have one marriage, the next marriage doesn't stick, like, legally.
Nah.
So
no.
It's a wrap.
Yeah.
Like, but I guess back then, obviously, it was, some people have arrangements and stuff. So anyway, moving right along. Yeah. That was interesting though, because we're gonna need to know this as we go over this next excerpt.
So it's a Levite. 19 is about a Levite and his concubine, where the Levite, the young lady leaves the Levite's house, and then she goes back to her father's house, and then he goes back to her father's house, and they stay for a couple days and they eat. And her father, and I looked it up, that's their custom to keep doing that over a period of 5 days.
Oh, okay.
So every time the Levite would try to go, the father would be like, "No, stay, eat, drink, be merry, sleep here." But that was their custom to do it multiple days in a row.
Okay.
So then the Levite was like, "No, we gotta go. We've been here for." I think they were there
for 5 days.
For 5 days, yeah. And so they left, and they were, the Levites from Israel, so they were traveling through Benjamin, and they came up on Gibeah, and they meet this old man, and the old man they're like, "Oh, we'll just sleep in the square, my donkeys have straw, it's okay, this town is in Benjamin, and it's I'm a Levite, it's okay."
Mm-hmm.
This is Israelites territory, it's the tribe of Benjamin, I'm cool. So the old man was like, no, I need you to come stay here.
Which is so wild now that I think of it.
Yeah.
Because can I just say,
Yeah.
when he first was like, "Oh, I'll just sleep in the town city center,"
Yeah.
right? Like, was that it? Was that
Yeah,
what
he
he
was
was going to
sleeping
say? He
in
was just like, "Oh
square.
yeah, I guess it's just kind of like sleeping in a park or whatever."
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're in this town. We don't have a place to stay. We don't know anybody here, so
Yeah.
we'll just sleep
They don't
out
think they
here.
have hotels.
But of course not. But it's like that's why people would be like, "Come stay with me."
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, I guess that's not safe because there's probably wild animals and such. I didn't think about the fact that there could be bad actors like this.
Yeah.
Okay, but go ahead.
So then they're in the old man's house, and they're like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll come, and they're feeding their donkeys, and the men of the place were so they stay at the old man's house, right? And you know they're being merry, the old man and you know they're eating and drinking.
They washed
bread.
their feet. They ate and drank.
Yeah.
Right.
So then the men of the city, worthless fellows, surrounded the house, beating the door. And they said, bring the man that came out so that we can get intimate with him. The same thing that happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. But this is in Benjamin, which is a tribe of Israel. This has gone so far from God, guys. The men wants to sleep with the other men.
He wants to rape the men.
He wants to rape the men. Want to
like
rape the men.
Like they're Oz.
Yeah.
The Oz.
So then, which this is bad. So then the Levite threw his concubine out there.
Yeah, because
that's not cool, man.
Yeah, he offered his virgin daughter. He's like, no, don't take the man, the visitor. Take my virgin daughter or his concubine.
Yeah.
And do whatever you want with them. So they was kept pounding, I guess, at the door, and then they let the concubine out.
And then
they basically raped her.
They raped her till she was dead.
They raped her and they left her there, and then she collapsed at the door. Yeah. And then when they got up in the morning to open the door, she was laying there and she had died.
She died. So what the Levite did was take her home, and because she was dead already, he took her limb by limb, and he cut it into 12 pieces and sent her throughout the territory of Israel. So now all of the other tribes are like, what's going on?
What is this? We've never seen
We've never seen this.
Basically like dismembered, like body parts.
Yeah. And he said that, oh yeah, I had to do this because I went to Gibeah and they tried to rape me, and then they raped and killed my concubine. So now you gotta understand. Now Israel's like, wait. What?
What happened?
What?
Right. Whereas, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I wonder if I'll be answered the question. I don't know what the question is though, but I think he did that because he wanted to cause some ruckus, because that story could have gone untold, or if he was just like trying to show people like, or tell people like, oh, they killed my concubine, people might not care, right? So he had to have, I guess he felt he had to do something extreme, like, well, she's already passed away, I need people to see this, and maybe that's why he did it that way. I mean, not that this has anything to do with this, but sometimes you have to draw attention to things. And I remember when Emmett Till's, I don't remember, I wasn't alive back then, but I do know that when Emmett Till was killed, his mom had an open casket at his funeral because she wanted the newspapers and everybody to get pictures of his face so that people could see that, like, this was a boy who was, unrecognizable, because this happened to him. So sometimes you gotta like cause a scene in order to see, to make people remember, to make people see like this is what happened, to tell the story. Because otherwise, people just sometimes wouldn't care or know.
Yeah. So once the Israelites find out, they went to Benjamin and was like, "What's going on?"
What's up?
And to their surprise, Benjamin protected the men in the city who did it.
Yeah, because they were supposed to go out and like find out who did it.
Yeah.
And they were like basically like turn over the men involved. This was in Judges 20:13. Now therefore turn over the men involved, the worthless and wicked men in Gibeah, so that we may put them to death and remove this wickedness from Israel. But the Benjamites would not listen to the voice of their brothers, the sons of Israel. They gathered from the cities to Gibeah to go out and battle against the other sons of Israel.
And so then a civil war ensued, and of course the Israelites prayed, and then God dismantled Benjamin, except for 600 men. So, which has come so far that you're letting these practices go on, and when you find out about it, you're like, oh, well, that's our town. We can't just let you. Like, what? Did you see what they did?
Yeah.
Oh, nah, it's okay, but you can't do that. So it's starting to get. You're starting to see the effects of not having God.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that was pretty. Might have been the most disturbing story we've read so far.
I mean, it was probably because it was detailed more so than some of the other things that have happened. Because, if they had been detailed about what happened to the daughter of Jepha or whatever, however you say it.
That would have been.
Then that would have been pretty horrible because.
But that's in Judges too.
Yeah, this was okay. You talking about the whole book?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was probably the most disturbing so far.
Yeah.
As far as like the things that were happening, I do remember another disturbing time, but I just can't remember which one it was. But this is the Bible, man. This is the Bible. You couldn't make stuff up like this. Like this is people getting their eyes gouged out. Getting raped and pillaged and all type of stuff, and dismembered. So this is some wild stuff, man.
And back then, here's another thing. I actually remember that the elders, Isaac's son, Jacob, who was Israel. Remember his sons? He had a daughter. She got raped, and his sons decimated that whole town.
Oh, they killed the town.
They didn't ask no questions. And this, where do we get?
And that seemed so shocking to me at that point.
Right. So here's the thing: why did Israel ask no questions? They should have asked no questions.
Yeah. Give us over to evil people.
They should have just went, burned the town down, and slew everybody. But they were like, "Oh well, what's up? We got to do this." Like they so far removed that there's no questions to be asked. There's no diplomatic thing.
And they obviously don't have any system set up because it's like they've departed from the ways that they've been taught.
Yeah.
So there's no accountability because there's no boundaries. And so this is what I do have to say, because the takeaway for me this week was that we're all capable of some level of departing from God. And like we all are, I'm not saying we're all capable of like raping someone to death or whatever was happening here, gouging somebody's eyes out, but I'm saying that it's the similarities so far have been so on point with how people think and how we operate as society that I have to think that this is just like as bad as it can get, but it can get worse when when it's left to, like it kept saying, like every man did what was right in his own eyes. And I feel like we're kind of getting to that point, current day, present day, but also I think, it probably took a long time for these things to happen, and who knows, a long time from what like where we are today. But I just, one thing that was not lost to me was just the idea that like we're all capable of this unruliness within, because we're all human. And is if you go into yourself and judge things for yourself and like do whatever's right in your own eyes, then it's just going to keep on getting further and further away from God. Yeah. Like that's how I see it. It's like if you just keep going with your own devices, like you might start out okay, like, oh yeah, we're going to be kind to everybody and everybody's going to have this, but then as you get further and further away, people are going to forget certain things. Like we forget stuff so quickly. Think about how many times you go in a room for something and then forget why you came in that room.
Yeah.
Right? It's like that's how the human mind works. Like we don't remember stuff. Like, there's been so many times where I was telling you, like I would go to church on a Sunday and be all uplifted and everything, and come like Monday or Tuesday, I'm, cussing somebody out of my head. Like It's like we are so soon to forget. And this really drove this book, Judges, really drove home to me that if you're not constantly seeking God's presence or like in His Word or like around people who are believers, then little by little you'll get closer and further and further away from God and closer to evil, to the point where you might not be able to really decipher between the two because it's what your norm is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it did for me, is like it just reminded me that like, yo, I need to be real careful about my daily just getting connected to God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last verse in Judges 21:25, in those days there was no king of Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes, just like you said. Left to our own devices, humans self-destruct. It's inevitable. Okay, how did the people respond to this gang rape? We already kind of answered that. Well,
yeah, you did.
They went up in arms.
Well, the people of Benjamin were like,
the people of Benjamin were like, whatever. Yeah, that's just so weird. But here's a good question. Why do we shrug off some violence today?
Why do we shrug off some violence today?
We talk about.
You want me to answer this?
We're both gonna answer, but let me start off. We talk about this all the time, where violence has become normalized. Violence in our culture has become something that is normalized. And here's the thing: if you don't believe me, look in America. You get the top 10 movies in America of all time. Most of the movies are violent. Rambo, Terminator, Goodfellas, Fight Club, Matrix. I'm just saying, these are examples, right? So I think that because we've seen it in time and over again, and then, it's almost in everything that we do, especially if, not even if you watch certain things on TV, that's all you see. And it just becomes custom. And because it becomes a custom, it becomes a part of us. Because we don't really realize how violent we are, because it's been brought into us as childs, in our childhood. Now, if you go to another place, some things that happen here people be like, "Oh my God, that's violent," but it's normalized, and it seems like by reading the Bible, this is where the normalization is coming from men who would do evil acts and shrug it off, like the Benjamites. Oh man, it's okay. Just they'll be okay. What?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my answer. I think it's just ingrained in us and a part of our culture. We don't even bat an eye or realize how prevalent it is.
Mm.
And it's prevalent.
Yeah, I would say, I would definitely take your answer and go a little bit further with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely normalized, but I think we shrug off some violence because it's normalized. And, one, it's not necessarily maybe like close enough to us, so we think it's not really happening to us, right? So we might notice that something happened to someone else's family, someone else's town, someone else's nationality, and it's okay because it's not us, right? Like, oh, that happened over there, or that happened to them, but really it's happening to us as humans. And as a society, you know what I'm saying? Like like you said, it's normalized. So, we almost just don't even know what to do about it. But it's not yet, I guess, to the point where people are organizing ourselves to say we have to do something about it, which brings me to point number 2 on why we shrug it off, is because we, it's not, dare I say, it's not important enough to us. And that could kind of piggyback into off of the number 1. It's not happening to us. Like, it's not happening in your community. It's not happening to your people, your family, your race. So you kind of shrug it off. But then that, kind of means that it's not really important. And unfortunately, it's not important until it happens close to you, right? And all of us are kind of like distracted. There's, there is so much that we're bombarded with on the news, and you hear about Ukraine, and you hear about, so many things, and you don't really know what to do about any of them. But we are also really distracted because we just think like, it hasn't come to my doorstep. So, I'm including obviously myself in that because I don't really know what to do about this kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, and I think the last reason I was going to say is really going to be, I think sometimes people shrug off violence because they think it's not that bad. Like, oh, that person deserved that, perhaps. Yeah. Or it's not that bad. Like,
they get over it.
Only 2 people died. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
people say that all the time.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Or it's not, or like when I say people think they deserved it, it's like, in this case, I was just thinking back to like when we just defined the word concubine. Like, sometimes people will think things like, certain things, you put yourself in a position like, what I'm saying? If you're shooting at somebody and you get shot, like, okay, well, you could have kind of prevented that. Yeah. But like, this concubine lady didn't really do anything, right? And she was just like basically handed over. I don't think they thought she was going to die, but it was one of those things that's like, people could say, oh, sometimes about people like they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, but it's like that doesn't mean they deserved it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, those are my answers.
So, all right, guys. Look, so next week we are done judges.
Man, we're going through, man. Yeah. We're getting on it. We are finished reading Judges. So now we're on to Ruth. Oh, wait. We're going to read Ruth 1 through 4, and then we're going to start 1 Samuel. And we're going to read from 1 Samuel through 12. So, Ruth 1 through 4, and then 1 Samuel 1 through 12. Yep. Okay, you got any shout outs this week?
Yeah, just want to continuously shout out fourth quarter. We're still breaking down the teams this summer. So, that is another podcast that it'll be put in the description below. It's something that's cool. It's, if you get tired of mainstream media and you want to just tap in, it's like for the fans, it's by the fans, and it's just cool from our perspective on what do we think about what's the hottest topics in sports. And I want to shout out Yes I'm a Unicorn. It's a planner channel where, it helps you out with organizing and planning and cool stuff on there like
how to deal with anxiety,
mind mapping, and writing out your thoughts, and so that's my shout outs.
Okay, well I got a few shout outs. So I got a shout out Miss Damita Jo, who is my wonderful sister, and she's got a lot going on over her channel. If you haven't heard, you might want to check that out. She's already over on she has a channel, and then she's also on ReTV, Relationship Entertainment Television. Shout out to ReTV. Also, I'm gonna shout out this week a fellow planner person who I was just thinking about last week, how much this person, even though I've never met her in person, has poured into me as far as me like watching her videos and being uplifted, getting ideas. And actually this person goes by their company called Planner Perfect. So that's what I'll link below. You can find out about their products and about the Planner Perfect subscription box and about the leathers and about the journals and plan books. But the person's name is Jenny Penton.
I knew you were going to say that.
Love me some Jenny Penton.
Yeah, Jenny Penton's cool.
I'm talking about,
She's
look,
cool,
he knows about her because
cool,
I'll sit there and watch some of her videos, like even her old stuff.
She be dropping dimes.
And she's literally like a mom of 8 who has read the Bible. She knows about God. She knows about like bringing the power of God into your life and about renewing your mind. And she, she does a lot of stuff on her channel. She does like baking and things like that. But the real stuff that I love to listen to, that reason why he knows about her is because he hears it sometimes when I don't have my headphones on, when she's talking about scripture. She's talking about, just things that happened in her day, how she had to stop and pray and just turn her thinking around. And it's just stuff that we all go through. And just so big shout out to Jenny Penton. I really love you, and I really love what you're doing out here in this planner community and in this community for us women. So, shout out to Planner Perfect.
All right, guys. We're going to see y'all next week. And then once again, we're always going to leave you with what our saying is. And it is...
Don't take our word for it.
Go to the source.
Read your Bible. All right, peace.